The history of rock and roll photography is littered with great photographers who have created iconic images, but there is one photographer for whom I just have a special place in my heart. Anton Corbijn's photography was with me when I started my journey in photography, and I dare say it will be with me when I end it. How's it? Anton Corbijn is a name that has been up there in my all-time list of favorite photographers for simply ever. His black and white photography, which was the work that I was first exposed to, is gritty. It's grainy. It's got this lithe kind of feel to it. It really sort of sums up the punk ethos that Corbijn got his start with. He'd gone over to London from his native Holland in the mid-70s, you know, photographing bands and you know, just trying to get some gigs using, if memory serves me right, like really fast film, because he could only afford one type of film, so he just used the fastest he could possibly get because he wanted to be able to photograph in nightclubs and during the day and all that kind of stuff. And he met Joy Division on the cusp of being super famous, taking photographs of them in the tube stations around London, and ended up, despite initial misgivings between the group and himself, actually like he's almost like an unofficial photographer. This is a name that, or a label that has been attached to Corbijn over his career, not least with U2 as well. And yeah, the pictures from that, just, I find them so atmospheric that they have none of this kind of pretension that you seem to see in today's celebrity photography. Certainly kind of mainstream stuff, you know, all the bands, they have a very cultured or curated rather, you know, public perception. But the photographs, you know, you can just imagine they're just doing their own thing. Then of course, tragically, Ian Curtis passed away, and these photographs took on a bit more of a significance, and you know, obviously that helped Corbijn's career a little bit, got a bit more exposure, and it kick-started this fantastic body of work that I simply love. And I wanted to share with you the lessons that I've kind of picked up from Anton Corbijn's photography, that I've kind of injected into my own over the years in various ways, and hopefully give you an insight on how you can look at a photographer's body of work that you enjoy and pick up and, you know, assimilate some of their approaches. The first thing that I mentioned to you about Corbijn's work that sticks out, especially with his black and white stuff, is it's black and white, but it is a particular look of black and white. It's very grainy. It's very, you know, it's got this kind of rough and ready feel to it because of the fast speeds that he was using in his film. And so when I was at photo school, and this is when I first fell in love with Corbijn, I kind of drifted away from film stocks like FP4 and, you know, things like that, just the really smooth-grained films, and into Tri-X was very fashionable. So that's a 400 ISO black and white film from Kodak. And then I went to extremes, Kodak TMZ, which was about 3,200. In those days, it was like super grain, and grain's a little bit different to noise, but it gave me that kind of feel. And I went, oh, do you know, I'm emulating my hero. This is kind of cool. Now my work feels like it's a little bit like his, and I took comfort from that. Because I was young, I was trying to find my way, and that feeling that you go, okay, I'm on the same level. I'm starting to get a bit of an insight into how this works. And of course, the more that you use these film stocks and these approaches and the ideas that you pick up, the more that it's like you get a feel for what the photographer's thinking. Those ideas of thinking back in the 90s and earlier, it was very difficult to find, you know, information online. Online was barely a thing. And so you kind of had to pick out amongst yourselves little ideas and kind of dissect photographs. And I remember at the time thinking, you know, there was a feel to Corbijn's images that I couldn't quite put my finger on. Because I'd grown up in an environment where your 50mm was your standard lens. That's what we were going to use, and that's how most people would photograph. The clues in the name, standard lens. And if you photographed a portrait, then you photographed it with a telephoto or a zoom lens. And if you photographed a landscape, you used a wide-angle lens. Then I was like looking at Corbijn's photography, and especially in the early days, there feels like it's quite wide. That photograph that we looked at earlier of of Joy Division walking down through the tube station, that's a wide-angle lens. And you see this idea surface again and again and again, and it feels kind of cool. It feels, certainly to my youthful eyes, it was kind of exciting, and it was hip because it was something that was going against the grain of perceived wisdom in photography. And then you look at this idea that I also loved of differential focus. Differential focus is when there's something in front of the camera or something in front of the subject that's wholly out of focus. And I could put my hands up like that and do that. It's kind of sort of different, but that's a very sort of naff expression. But you can look at his work, go, that's cool. And I can see these echoes in my own work at the time. I'm like picking out these ideas and I'm going, do you know, I like that bit. I'm going to put that in there as well. The same could be said for Robert Mapplethorpe's work. I wasn't really in a position to kind of assimilate some of Mapplethorpe's approaches, but I liked a bit of his shock value. And for me, shock value was just kind of like alternative counterculture kind of things. So I see all this kind of coming into my work. And think about your own favorite photographers. If the sort of work that they create is work that resonates with you, that you like it, that you kind of go, oh, okay, I'm going to see if I can inject some of this into my own photography, then that's okay. There's a thing in photography or in a lot of art, that we have to be original, that we have to make totally original work. And that's not the case at all. Everything in photography and in the art world is a remix. Now, I just want to interrupt very, very briefly here my own train of thought, just to say that on Wednesday I will be opening up the pre-slots for my cohort, where we're going to discuss about finding an authentic voice, about getting more out of the inspiration that we see all around us as photographers, and making our work unique, taking it to that next level once you've sort of got a hold of the basics. I'm going to open up the slots, which are limited to 10, because that can just take 10 people on this on Wednesday before I make it live on Friday. So if you'd like to get in the front door before everybody else, sign up or put your name on the wait list in the link in the description box below or on the QR code on the screen. Anyway, back to the Anton and his wonderful photographs. There was also something that, as I've been flicking through this book here, now this is the very great Star Trek. The other book that I was looking through is Famous, which is, if you can get hold of a copy, it's really, really, really fantastic. Is that I was being told at the time by perceived wisdom that if you took a portrait of somebody, it should be a portrait of them. This should be your face. This is, a portrait is the person that you recognize. And there's a photograph here of Michael Stipe from just around this period where he'd I think after Automatic for the People, and I forget which one came after that he'd shaved his head. So his bald head was now iconic. And there's a picture here where it's just his bald head. So you kind of go, okay, I kind of know who it is. There's Bowie here. He's completely out of focus. And yet it suits the devilish quality of Bowie. This is what I'm sort of picking up as I go through, is that these are not just portraits of somebody. Often there's something a little bit more going on. And that was my first introduction to the power of a photographer who's making portraits about people that have depth to them. There's an image here of Frank Sinatra sitting in a bar. And you can barely make out Frank. He's there all by himself. He's alone. That is a very powerful image. Now for me, this is, I don't know when this was, but this is probably not that long before he passed away. And you can imagine, this is Frank Sinatra, one of the most famous people in the world, who I'm sure was, if he was in a bar, would be mobbed. And yet here he is, alone with his thoughts and a drink. And it's an extremely poignant photograph. It's funny, even now, flicking through these images, I want to go back. I want to just channel my inner Anton Corbijn more. I loved photographing in that style. It was something that I didn't stick with for very long, mostly because there were other shiny objects that came my way, but I just look at his photographs, and there are, I think maybe it's because of it's music, it's the things that makes me feel young, it makes me feel like I'm an art student again. It makes me remember when music, my personal music, felt vital, and I was like, oh, this is so cool. And there was that excitement of creativity that unfortunately for me I dribbled away a little bit over time, because I was probably trying to be too perfect in my images. But that's because unfortunately and I say unfortunately, that's how I am inside with my photographs. I'm more of a perfectionist, kind of traditional sort of look. So it sort of went away. But I absolutely adore Anton Corbijn's photographs. And if you are not familiar with his work as a photographer, there is a fantastic documentary that's available. I will talk about it at some point else on the channel. I haven't got time now because I could just waffle on all day about Corbijn. Take the time to go through the photographers whose work you enjoy. Find one aspect and pick out their approach and put it into your own images. While I couldn't copy some of Mapplethorpe's more risque approaches to photography, there is one thing that I pulled out of his work that I absolutely have included in my own photographs over the years. To find out what it is, check out this video over here. Thank you ever so much for watching, and I will see you again soon. And don't forget to sign up for the waitlist if you're interested in the cohort.